Namanda,
Namanda, Namanda, Namanda.
Sanbutsuge. Kogen gigi ichin mugoku nyozenyo muyo tosha nichigatma ni shuko Kaishi nompe yunyaku jumoku nyorai yogen chose murin shogaku daion koru jipo kaimon shojin samai chie itoku muryo shushokeu jintai zenen shobun hokai gujin jinno gugo gaitai mumyo yokunum seson yomu nino shishi jintoku muryo kukun kodai chie jinyo komyo iso shindo daisen ganga sabu zai shou kando shoji mifugeda fuse joi kainin shojin nyoze samai chie ijon gose tokubu fugyo shigan isai kuku isadayam keshi ubu hyakusen nokuman muryo daisho shunyo goja kuyo isai shito shomu funyo gudo kensho fugya hinyo goja shobun sekai bufu 主先道光明思想変死証拠如是精進異人難量量が三分国土第一五種奇妙道場超然国如内音二無闘争ガト愛民道断一切自母来生新年少女伊藤学校慶楽安の公文信用是が新書本願の日力少々よ自母生存知恵無限上領子孫知が信用軽量心身食読中学業精進忍辱福ナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダがんにしくどく平等聖祭道本母大心往生ナモアミダ仏。
ナモアミダ仏。
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 ナマンダ仏。ナマンダ仏。ナマンダ仏。ナマンダ仏。
We will now recite the pledge, which is on page 108 in the Blue Service Book. Please join me in Gassho. To Amida Buddha, who promised to be present in his teachings. We pledge our loyalty and devotion. We dedicate our lives to the way of life he laid down for us to walk. We resolve to follow his example and labor earnestly for the welfare of all humanity. Namo Amida Buddha. Namo Amida Buddha. Namo Amida Buddha.
Welcome, everyone, to our last TSDBT summer YouTube service. Starting next week, we're going to start having our normal family YouTube services like we did prior to the summer. So I'm very happy to say you made it and school has started. So congratulations to all you parents out there who I know are probably having a very interesting time with schooling with your children. Today, I'd like to ask you to join me in Gassho as I read from the Shozumatsu Wasan. Although I take refuge in the true Pure Land way, it is hard to have a true and sincere mind. This self is false and insincere. I completely lack a pure mind. Each of us, in outward being, makes a show of being wise, good, and dedicated. But so great are greed, anger, perversity, and deceit that we are filled with all forms of malice and cunning. Extremely difficult is it to put an end to our evil nature. The mind is a venomous snake or scorpion. Our performance of good acts is also poisoned. Hence, it is called false and empty practice. Although I am without shame and self-reproach, and I lack the mind of truth and sincerity, because the name is directed by Amida, its virtues fill the 10 quarters. Namo Amida Buddha. Namo Amida Buddha. Namo Amida Buddha. Namanda Buddha. Namanda Buddha. Namanda Buddha. All right, good morning, everybody. In case you didn't know, used to be an engineer. So at one point in my life, actually not even that long ago, I worked as a petroleum engineer. And one of the great things about engineering is there tends to be a right answer and a wrong answer. So if I approached a question and said, I want to know when this pipe's going to burst, this is a binary question. The pipe is either burst or not burst. The same thing when I was looking at, like, what is a fluid flow going to do under this condition? It's either going to be laminar or turbulent. These were kind of just the questions I dealt with. However, as I got further in my engineering career, I realized that things weren't quite that simple. I got really deep into rock mechanics and looking at how to break the earth, which sounds really brutal, and it kind of is, but the science behind it is really fascinating. And what I found was, every time that I broke one part of the earth, it never acted on its own. It always had all the other parts of the earth around it, all the other rock acting on it. And so when the stress within this piece of rock changed, it permeated out into every single piece of rock around it. And on a super ultra micro scale, it affected the entire system, the entire earth. The stress field that I was altering then altered every single thing around it. And so we, working in petroleum engineering at the time, wanted to model the fractures that we were making in the earth. And so we built these computer models, and first we built mathematical models back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Things called the PKN model and the radio model, and all these are inconsequential. And then we were like, no, those are wrong. And we got to the 90s and 2000s, and we started building 3D discrete fracture network, DFN models, where we're using computers and finite element analysis, and we're like, this is how it's growing. And I used those in the beginning of my career, and as I got further in my career, I started working in technology that actually mapped the fractures. And we realized that everything we knew in our models were wrong, because we were not able to take into account every action that we caused causing further reactions and reactions and reactions and reactions and reactions. And so every time we thought that the rock was in one state, it was actually in a different one. And every time we said, okay, the rock is always in this state, the second we did anything to it, and I mean anything, that state changed. So measurement was always reactive instead of proactive. I think for me, when I read the Shozenmatsu Wasan and what's known as Gotoku's hymns of lament and reflection, he is saying kind of the same thing of himself. I am blind to the actions in which I cause outside. Each of us in outward being make a show of being wise, good, and dedicated. As an engineer, I pretended I knew what I was doing because that's what they paid me to do. And so I was like, yes, 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 this fracture that we're doing for you is going to grow in this way. I had no idea. And the reason that I had no idea is the actions that I was doing were going into a system that were so utterly complex that I could never truly understand it. So every time that I changed something, the system changed around me in reaction to me. I think this acknowledgement is maybe why I became Buddhist and maybe why I became a minister, in that I started seeing how utterly complex this small part of the world was, just how stress fields worked within rocks. And I looked around me to people who are not static things under pressure, but rather the most dynamic system that exists within my sight. And I said, I don't understand you. And I don't understand how my actions affect you. And fundamentally, I think I'm a good person. So my actions must only affect you in good ways. And I am so lucky, because in that search, I started to become very sad because I realized I couldn't understand how I affected the system. And when I encountered the teachings of Shinran Shonin and the Nembutsu, it told me something that in the beginning was very hard to hear. I am flawed. I am essentially Bombu. I am a foolish being that has the blind passions of life. Inherently, I do not have the ability to become an enlightened one here and now. And so, in many ways, what the teachings of Jodo Shinshu and my great teacher, far removed Shinran Shonin, taught me is that I walk around all day, moving in different directions with sunglasses so tinted that I don't know who and what I walk into in the system. And so I am walking and bumping into people. And I don't know where they're going because of my actions. I don't know how my actions are causing others to improve or to worsen. And I can't fix this. I want to. So I have to play a long game. We live in a society of instant gratification. I got off work this morning because I still work a full-time job because I'm a student, and had a curiosity about a sports score. And so I pulled out my phone while I was driving, and I said, it was on my dash, and I said, okay, Google, what was the score of the Colorado Avalanche game last night? And Google goes, good morning, Caitlin. The score was 3-2, I think. I don't remember now because it was so inconsequential. And I was like, that's awesome, Google. And Google didn't reply because Google's a phone. But I got this instant gratification. And so for me, today, when I approach Buddhism, there's the part of me, and that instant gratification part of me that wants, I read this book. I must be enlightened. I must be a wise person. And what Shinran's telling us here, and Shinran being a much, 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 much more learned person than I will ever be, he wasn't wise or learned. One thing I've noticed is those who I've met in the different careers I've done that have gone before me and are older and much more experienced tend to be the first ones to say, I don't know an answer. I think that's the wisdom that comes with age. And the wisdom to know that the more that I know, the less that I know. The more that I know, the more the fact I see that I have sunglasses on that are dark and blinding. So as I've confronted this in my life, what I've realized is I need help. I need a hand. I don't need a hand. I need an all-enveloping hug. I need someone to grab my hand and to guide me to the end of the path. To say, come, I will take these glasses off of you. And eventually, the light will not be so blinding, and you will be able to open your eyes, you will focus, and you will see the truth, not only of your existence, but of the system as a whole. I think this is the love and compassion shown to us by Amida Buddha. And this becomes the heart of the great teaching of Namo Amida Butsu. Shinran said in the 97th Shozumatsu Wasan, although I am without shame and self-reproach, and I lack the mind of truth and sincerity, because the name is directed by Amida, its virtues fill the 10 quarters. I am never so lost that the Nembutsu isn't there besides me. And when it slips from my mouth, in my knowledge that when I say this, I don't say it to benefit myself, but because I know Amida's compassion embraces me, and that someday, as I play this long game to its conclusion, I will be able to help those around me who I have bumped into and caused pain. And so I will continue to take refuge in the true Pure Land way. And I will do it thinking I know what I'm doing, because I am foolish. And I will think that I'm a good person because this is all that I know how to do. And I will let the actions that I think help people go out, but I honestly don't know because I am Bombu. But the one thing I do know is that I'm going to continue to say Namo Amida Butsu in the same way that Shinran Shonin showed me. And maybe, likely, because I know eventually I will open my eyes. I will understand the systems I affect. I invite you all to find your journey within this as well. And to find the way to say Namo Amida Butsu, not for yourself, but because you want to say it for others. Someday. Please join me in Gasho. Although I take refuge in the true Pure Land way, it is hard to have a true and sincere mind. This is false and insincere. I completely lack a pure mind. Each of us, in outward bearing, makes a show of being wise, good, and dedicated. But we are so great our greed, anger, perversity, and deceit, that we are filled with all forms of malice and cunning. Extremely difficult it is to put an end to our evil nature, the mind like a venomous snake or scorpion. Our performance of good acts is also poisoned. Hence, it is called false and empty practice. Although I am without shame and self-reproach, and lack the mind of truth and sincerity, because the name is directed by Amida, its virtues fill the 10 quarters. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandavits, 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 namandavits.
Chi